All right. So today, well, not today. Well, now we are actually going to start with something different topic. It's not your mathematical or it's not your machine learning stuff. It's basically robotics. So let me just hide this up. I actually found this book called Foundation of Robotics, and I did some research with Python, and it mentioned me that it's a really good for building the basics of or the foundational basics of robotics. So here's the thing. I'm actually getting into college, and I really want to work on robotics because you uh, might see my car over here. So that's my robotic car. But here's the thing. As of now, this thing is basically controlled by a remote control, which I operate using my tablet or my phone. But this book basically teaches you R.O.S. along with the Python, uh, which I'm already studying, and it also teaches you how to actually embed conventional neural networks, or basically machine learning models or deep learning models into your robotic system. So after reading this particular book, I will be able to control this particular robotic car. You can see the batteries are over here. I hope you can see this. So I'll be able to control this using AI or something. I might embed some AI models, which would help in controlling this robotic car. But anyways, so let's just get and so yeah. So and the second thing, I'm joining a college and want to join a robotics club. I really want to work with robotic stuff. And there's also one more thing. If you'll go to the where's the index? Where's the index? Oh, there it is. Um, wait, let me see. Architecture. Yeah, so it also teaches you the dynamics, kinematics, and the architecture of robotic arm, uh, which I particularly need to make my robotic arm because on the top of this particular robotic car, there would be a robotic arm. I'll share you the link later in the description so that you could see what I'm actually working on. So heading towards the first topic, and yeah, that's pretty much my goal and the motivation. That's why I'm starting with this book. So let's just get to the chapter one. Um, Let me just download the. Okay, I think I'm already having the document is current. Okay, okay. It means the version that I'm reading is basically the latest one or the current one, the recent published document. Let me just get to the index. So, genealogy of artificial being from robotics, from ancient of artificial beings from ancient automata to modern robotics. What does automata mean? Automata mean I think it means something which does not require human input. Automation, self-operating. Okay, so robots are self-operating. Okay, to modern robotics. And like here's one more thing. I'm not gonna explain too much. I'm just gonna read on my own. And this lecture won't be too long since I have to leave by 7:30 for gym. That's why. Okay, so let's see what it says. To understand the mythological origins of the contemporary robots and automata. Okay, to current tense and robotics, the history of the being to understand the roles of the crafts, arts, and the creations. Okay, so this particular chapter is teaching you the very pre basics and the story behind building robots. Extensive overview of history of automata robots from the Hellenistic period, which saw the birth of the science and technology, and during which lived the founders of the modern engineering to today. Contemporary robotics is actually a very young field. It was perceived by a 2000-year period in which the higher sophisticated automata were built for the very different purposes to entertain, to impress, to or amaze at different times. You'll see the methods and the techniques. Just zoom a little bit. Oh, my bad. That the methods and the techniques that were used to build these automata are largely contributed to develop the development of robotics. Okay, autonomy, music, weaving, jewelry, all understood automata. The artificial being was rational, but rather rooted in okay, old age to stimulate even to realize an identity from the inert material. Okay, what is a robot? Okay, what do you mean by robot? I don't know. I really don't know what does robot mean. Whereas most of us would think they know what a robot actually is. A closer look at the concept to show you the precise definition is not easy to frame, and that is broadened again in the last decade to encompass a large variety of devices from the first appearance of the world in the how do you pronounce this shiz theater play in which it was referring to human being artificially created to become perfect cerebral workers. Okay, I'm just gonna highlight that. It is now use a range of devices at different robotic arms factories. Okay, it even came to describe the identities that lie at the boundary of the technology and the biology and that cannot anymore described as a fully artificial. This evolution is less paradoxical than it seems as opposed to a common idea. Capex robots were not strictly speaking artificial machines. They were created with the organic materials synthesized by the chemical process. Okay, in the scenario, the core of the project was to build teams of the workers that were free from everything that was not essentially to implementation of their task, feeling emotionally sensibility, their role was that of robots, but they were still living biological organisms, which make them quite different from highly sophisticated technological devices that come to mind when thinking of contemporary robots. They were, in the sense that, more related to automata, a word that Capek has actually used in the previous play, but that was completely replaced by the robots in this one. Okay, the last point is with noticing in the time RUR was written as what does RUR mean? What does that mean? Rossum's Universal Robots, okay, was written was a mm, neologism forced from salvage root referring to work, chore, forced labor. Nothing in its original meaning implied that a robot should be a machine and automatic creator help human beings in the implementation of some task. Okay, are these robots? Like, why their faces look like they look like humans. Oh no, it's basically some sort of play, like a cosplay, I think. Yeah, with three robots on the right. Wait, are those real robots? I don't know. I don't know. I'm not clear with that. Uh, so what was the last line? Implementation of some task becomes a robot. In that respect, it actually contradicts the original meaning of the word automata with etymologically, what does that mean? Let me search for that word. Exploring words based on the original history and okay. Refers to an animated device which acts by itself. The word decomposed in the Greek roots auto, which precisely means by itself, whose origin, strangely enough to you, is unknown, and matos, thinking, or endowed with Phil from the other Proto-Indo-European meant to think, therefore designates an animated artificial being that is being able to make decisions and to act anonymously, whereas a robot is frequently associated with a machine that has been designed for the sole purpose of blindly executing set of instructions crafted by a human. Okay, so whereas okay, the opposite of autonomous entirely. So entirely, not entirely. So they're actually teaching us the definition for the being autonomous and being what does being a robot mean? So being autonomous is basically think on its own and making its own decisions. So basically, that's artificial intelligence. Uh, Whereas a robot is basically something, or identity, or a device, or something like anything, any machine, which is designed to operate a particular set of instructions, basically algorithm made by humans, and it's not allowed to take decisions. As far as I'm considering what the book is trying to say, the opposite of okay, which is hardly descriptible, however, is the fact that every contrary robot finds its place in the old age genealogy of automata. It might also be interesting to note that the oldest origins of the root robo from which the robot was created evokes the fact that being orphan, which corresponds to surprisingly well to these artificial beings, which is the matter of the fact that never had a biological father or a mother since its first occurrence. The meaning and significance of robot has then developed. Gloomy. What does gloomy mean? Without much hope for a future, I don't know. A lot of robots are today great for research, experiment, and entertainment without any practical use, but current pilots do not. Robotistics do not agree on a single definition. To implement, however, strikes out overreaching abroad consequences. First, the device must be present some form of intelligence. Second, it must be embodied. Embodied. What does embodied mean? I think it means Okay, embody. Okay, it means to be a very good example of something, or it should contain something. Okay, as it is well known, intelligence itself a tricky notion to define, and this context does not integral. I mean, thus again, this corresponds to common perception of artificial intelligence, better represented by the concept of machine learning. Okay, okay, okay. Intelligence for a robot is only about taking decision of an old on its own based on the limited information it has from its context or from its internal states. Here again, how do you pronounce this? Etymology. Etymology comes to help. The word comes from the Latin inter legger, to link between. The link can be an elementary, a bumper sensing a wall, making the robot wheel stop, or more complex, the robot takes a decision by comparing information coming from the multiple sources. Okay, okay, that's what my robotic car is going to do. The concept of embodiment refers to the physicality, okay, of the robot as opposed to software bots on its side. Automaton today refers indifferently to a hardware or a software device. For the sake of the present chapter, we will tighten the meaning of the word robot in order to encompass essential hardware automata fulfillment to, to criteria. First, they must be dedicated to autonomous implementation of DDD, dangerous, dull, or dirty task. Um, okay, okay, so robots are basically dedicated to autonomous implementation of something which is dangerous, a dull, or a dirty task, or to facilitate the implementation of such tasks for human beings. Second, okay, okay, so let's see if you're about to defuse a bomb. If a robot does that instead, it would be a dangerous thing to do, but safer for humans. They must be able to take decisions through some form of interaction with their context, as we see how below the definition itself has undergone several variations in the last decade, but we will keep it for the moment. Okay. The mythical origin. Wait, I just need to make sure that I'm not exceeding 10 pages because that's what my goal is. So this page is 22. We are supposed to go till 32. You know that my daily goal is to read about 5 to 10 pages. I'll start with the five initially as of today only because today I don't have much time left. But anyways, the genealogy of robots as well as the history of robotics are then intimately linked to that form of automata. An extensive recapitulation of this history would far beyond the scope of this chapter. All the more since several books have already written on it among, okay, so these are some books, I mean these are some authors who have written Damson and Calcium. Let me just search for them. Okay, so it's actually a book. Romantic Automata Exhibition Figures. Okay, I don't know what that is. Oh, okay, okay. However, an efficient way to understand the fundamentals of human motivation and the fascination for the robot and robotic system is to recapitulate some of its main characters and to locate in time and bifurcations that progressively separate robots from automata. The evolution of historical trends in robotics is one of the greatest steps to understand why some aspects of robotics research are better known and are better developed than others. The first and the likely most important point to consider is that the roots of the robotics are not anchored in technology or science, but rather in the mythological ground that extends far beyond these fields. Okay, and that can be broadly divided into two layers. The first one is concerned with the myth of being with a supernatural power and unpredictable intentions, and an image that still hovers over any robot or automaton. The second involves all the attempts that has been made along the history to replicate through the to artificial mechanism to natural phenomenon that escape human understanding, namely life and cosmological events. So they're talking about those robots which could go far beyond the human level thinking, and they could live. Okay, they could live forever, namely life and cosmological events. Okay, these two layers are integrated at many levels, but they differ by their basic intentions. The first one is most likely at the origin of all the humanoid or the animal-like automata. It led to the pursuit of creating artificial beings whose whose powers surpass those of human beings. Autonomous intended that can be made insensitive to pain, fear, boredom, and to any form of emotion, less gain enthalpy, empathy, not enthalpy. My bad. That's a term from physics or chemistry. A lot of examples of inventors who try to build such intensity can found in tales, science fiction stories, movies, and video games, covering all the spectrum of intentions towards mankind, from help, assistance, and protection to destruction and domination. So we have seen that you might have seen that movie Terminator by Arnold Schwarzenegger. uh, Amazing movie. So I think that's what they're talking about, from assistance and protection to destruction and domination. What was the story? Those robots, those humanoid robots, came from the future to dominate over humans and to kill humans. Okay. However, once it is built, because it should possess as an automaton a kind of free will, it will become uncontrollable and behave in unpredictable ways, even for its creator. Oh my God. Are we talking about future? Is this the future? Oh my God. So this is illustrated by the capex play, but also by the wealth of the workers that has emanated from the Jewish myth of the golem, first mentioned. Okay, golem. So is that the same golem which is in the Minecraft? Oh yeah, yeah. That's the golem. In the Talmudic literature, being an artificial created made of clay, the golem was a embryonic form of life created for the sole purpose of helping or protecting his creator. Exactly. Okay. It should be noted that historically speaking, Golem is most likely the first identity entity that corresponds to above definition of a robot, artificial intelligence identity built entity built specifically for implementing a practical task or function. Despite the highly functional and technological nature of the most contemporary robot system, the evolution of the automata and the emergence of the robots cannot be fully understood without realizing that most of them originate from will to stimulate life, that automata makers have been developed highly advanced scale and have been spending tremendous amount of time and resources in order to achieve this goal with the highest possible precision. And the last but not the least, that in every automaton maker rests the secret and the hidden dream of seeing one day his own intimate creature come to life, a dream to which a previous work we gave the name Gapto syndrome. Bro, what am I even reading? Pro- to breathe life into something. Oh my god. I remember I actually saw a movie where this was this guy who was a scientist and his daughter was dying, and eventually what he did is basically transfer her daughter's consciousness into that robotic computer. I don't remember the exact name of the movie, but damn, that's what they're talking about in this book. Oh my god. Now just imagine if I could, if I could transfer my consciousness into a humanoid robot. I mean, whoa, that would be like, I don't have words for it, but holy shit. From their very beginning, and automata were created to stimulate their main and often only objective was to stimulate what they have already were. Assemb wait ASSEMBLA assemblages of inanimated animate matter pretending to act by themselves. It is not a coincidence if the first automata appear at a time during which a first elementary understanding of physics was slowly emerging. Since only a tiny part of the population had access to it, its mastering was often perceived as magical by common people. Okay, so in that era, I don't know what era they are talking about. In that era, perceiving robotics and physics was considered as magic. That's crazy. Even if one of the main objective of new born Greek science was to explain natural events by natural causes, that is, to get rid of the supernatural explanation. Its power could easily be the confusion with that of the entities found in the myths, tales, or religious text. Uh, Several workers exploited in the order to create devices whose purpose was either to entertain or to sedate crowd by stimulating the intervention of supernatural forces. Automata built for practical purposes were virtually non-existent. Okay, so at that time, automation or the robotics made during that time was like it didn't exist for any practical purposes. Like if you see what the Boston Dynamics is doing, let's just search on Google what is US Boston DY Dynamics doing in 2026. Let's get an AI summary. It's running a fully electric enterprise grade Atlas robot to factory floors. So robots working in the factories rather than just a human working and loading the whatever the thing is required. Uh, are also expanding the commercial footprint to their existing and autonomous robots spots and stretch. Okay, so this is Atlas. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, let's just get back to what we were. Uh, it's not always obvious at the first glance. The perpetual Selbidra. How do you pronounce this? Holy shit! I mean, I'm like literally encountering so many new words in this book that I'm literally getting a brain fog. I don't know, built by the said bosses from Alexandria, of whom we talk below, could claim to be prime model robotics since it has the function of giving the time of the day an ordinary. Wait, how do you pronounce this? Kelpsudru. Kelpsudra. Kelpsudra. Okay, I think that's how you're supposed to. Kelpsudra. Okay, Kelpsudra cannot be considered as an automation. It is akin to that of an hourglass that uses water instead of sand, and as such, it does not feature any autonomous component. But this particular, I'm not reading this device, built 3 centuries BC, was coupled by the mechanism that refills its tanks every day with the water coming from a source, and that configured its internal state in order to indicate the time for each day of the year. Being completely autonomous, it qualifies as definition of the autonomous. Okay, since it is okay, so this is the device that they're talking about. Oh my god, how big is that thing? Wait, Claude? Damn, damn. It was built for a practical purpose since it incorporates some kind of intelligence by reacting to the amount of water in its tank, and since it was embodied, it could claim to be the first instantation of a robot in the modern sense of the term, but this interpretation only holds when considering it with our contemporary eyes. Like most time measuring devices, there was more an astronomical model than a clock. It transposed the movements of the sun into autonomous mechanism, just like the humanoid or the zoomorphic automata. Wait, what does that mean? I'm hell god. There's a lot of tones that I'm encountering. Describes anything that processes or uses to try to form a shape of an animal. Okay, we're trying to describe, comprehend, and replicated the functions and the behaviors of the living being. The first clock up to the being of the scientific revolution were mainly planetary or cosmological models based to translate a partial understanding of the celestial machines. Wordsworth himself, while referring to Cestbios, no, C.T.
TGBS's.
What?
Tesaibios. Tesaibios. TGBS's.
HGBS's. Bro, what is that word? In the 10th book of its. Oh my god, I'm just getting so much of. Does not attribute to any practical function. The design and the building of such instruments usually requested workers and craftsmen that were best skilled of their generation. The technological changes implied by such mechanism triggered the development of the fully new technological and theoretical knowledge, and often requested massive amounts of money that could be provided only by the wealthiest members of the society. They became symbols of prestige and testified for the level of the expertise achieved in their country of origin. Even today, building a clock with a very long revolution period, everything but a simple measure, it took more than 15 years to design and 12 years to build the astronomical clock located at the Copenhagen City Hall, completed in 1955. Its slowest girl completes one full rotation in, oh my god, 25,000 years. Oh my god, that's a lot. All these examples, as well as many others, show that the impulse for creating automata is not originally driven by the practical needs. It comes from the mythical desire to understand some of the deepest mechanisms at the origin of the life and the cosmological events, a desire that stands at the origin of the major developments in the mechanical science and in the technology. Okay, and especially those at the origin of the modern robotics to qualify as an automaton, an artificial being does not need to be useful. It does not even need to move or to do anything. It just had to be able to provide the convincing end of the illusion of life. Okay, I'm not gonna read that. An industry perspective. Charles DeQuire, president and CEO of the Quinoa. Oh, I think I've heard that. Quinoa Inc. Quinoa Robotics. Oh, I've heard of this company. Together in robotics. Oh, damn. Damn, that's great. That looks. Oh, is that the same chair Stephen Hawking used to sit on? I don't know. Anyways, okay. Let's see what it says. Let me just grab some water. I'm like really really thirsty. I like to think that I was born as an entrepreneur. Both my parents were entrepreneurs, and some of our family members. And from the day I had to decide I was going to become, I knew the path I wanted to follow. But as in every business cases, you need the idea. In my case, I was raised with the idea. When I was younger, I had three uncles living in the muscular die star free all power wheelchair users. Okay, and very limited upper body mobility. Mobility. The changes they face never stop. The challenges they face never stopped them. They were founded a private company dedicated to the transportation of the people with the special needs. This concept evolved to become a public adapted transport system of the Montreal. One of my uncles, Jacques Forest, had only one finger that he could move. He was challenged by the idea to develop an arm that could be controlled by his active fingers to allow him to become independent in his functionality and able to grasp and manipulate objects in his surrounding without external assistance. He generated various innovative technical ideas for such devices that were based on his uh, own experience and intuition. The gripping device he succeeded to build was made for this desk lamp frame and ended up by a hot dog. What ended up by a hot dog pincer, pincer, hot dog pincer? What's that? No, I know what hot dog is, but what is hot dog pincer? Not price. Pincer. My bad. The search is incorrect. Oh, is it like the dog who ate the who ate his arm? The manipulator is built by every member of the family. It was put in the motion by bicycle cables attached to the windshield Viper's motors that were assembled on the plywood and located at the back of his wheelchair. Motor were activated through 14 electronic switches that he controlled through his unique moving finger. When I was studying to become an engineer, I came across all kinds of new technologies that were all extraordinary, but I realized how having an astronaut doing remote manipulation with space robot arm could be a aberration when people in the wheelchairs could not even pour themselves a glass of water alone. Okay. As I was already aware of the reality of the people living with the physical disabilities, I decided I would dedicate my life to solving those problems, starting with a robotic assistive device built from the ground up, specifically for the wheelchair users. Oh my god, I love this guy now. I love this guy, what he did. I love this guy, Charles Dickwire, the president and CEO of Kenowa Inc. Okay, we have more to read. Uh, we move problems through a funnel. We start very wide, sort of chaotic. We look internally and externally with our own industry and at the other industries and ask, what process can I use to solve this? Once we have selected a few approaches that we believe have potential, we drill down and get really focused on executing each of them. We robotize. That's a new term. Robotize tasks. We did that for the people using wheelchairs, expanding their reach. In surgery, we expanded the capabilities of a surgeon. In hazardous material handling, we robotize the manipulation of the toxic or the nuclear waste, but it's always the same process, providing better tools to humans. Okay, creativity is one of Canada's great resources. This was supposed the growth of the quinoa and which propels our Canadian manufacture to internal scale. Okay, okay, all right. Wait, let me just get back to the index. I think it was on page 5. Where's the index? Okay, there it is. That's a really big topic, to be honest. Anyways, I'm just gonna read it. Early automata. So wait, how do you pronounce this?
TGBSs. TGBSs.
TBCS, I don't know, is considered as the founder of the Greek school of mechanics. After him, four characters stood up in the nascent field of the automata around the eastern part of the Mediterranean Sea. Behall of Byzantium, Vitruvius, no, not Vitruvius. Vitruvius. I'm getting pretty bad at English. I'm like literally, bro. I'm not here to understand English. I'm here to understand robotics. In Rome, Hieron of Alexandria, and later Ismail el Jaziri from Anatolia. By looking at the few examples of their work, we will see working in the field of the illusion and simulation did not prevent them to produce a major corpus of knowledge on the behavior of the real physical systems to contribute with large installments in their area. and to leave technical writing that become major sources of inspiration for generations of engineers and scientists. Okay, the machines and the automata they conceived are nothing less than technological workers of their time. Okay, Chilhan Phylon, okay, Phylon of Byzantium. Byzantium lived around the 3rd century. He left a number of treatises that give a very precise amount of technological level of amount of the technological level of his country. He invented an automated weight race that was serving wine and water, and that is generally considered as the first real human robot in the history. Okay, so we are heading towards making humanoid robots. About 3 centuries later, the mathematician and the engineer Heron of Alexandria designed a series of about 8 mechanical devices, one of being which considered as the first steam machine, some others being moved by the sole force of the wind. Since his researches were unknown to the Western scholar for more than a millennium. What does millennium mean? Oh my god! A period of 1,000 years? Oh my god! And since most of the machines were destroyed during the fire of the Alexandria Library, what's that? Oh my god! The code of his invention can only be estimated. Many may never have realized. None of them were dedicated to the implementation of the practical task. He frosted his knowledge of the physics and mathematics, mostly geometry, in order to impress to trigger mathological fascination through mechanisms whose description can be found in the TREA treatise automata. Okay, I have no idea what that is. Holy shit. In what is known as the first example of the building automation, the doors of a temple would open after the sacrifice only if the visitors ignited a fire in a replicate. The fire heated a hidden water reservoir, and the accumulated pressure caused the part of the water to be transferred in a second reservoir suspended to a cable and pulley system attached to the doors. Since this reservoir became progressively heavier, it began to go down, which caused the doors to open. Heron was designed a large animated sculpture of the Dionysus, in which the water flowing from reservoir to another trigger a sequence of actions pouring wine from Dionysus' glass, pouring milk, white colored water from his sphere, rotating Dionysus' central state, rotating the statue of an angel over that of Dionysus, and finally pouring again wine and milk from the opposite outputs. Some versions of the corresponding plans and the diagrams include the group of the dancers circling around the main stages, as well as the fire that was ignited automatically by a lighting device. Another of his treatise, Dioptra, Dioptra, is key to modern robotics since it is described since it describes several instruments with practical aims. Let me close this up. Such as the measure of the distance and the angles, and includes the first odometer, a device that worked by counting the rotations of the wheels of a chariot. It was tailored to the Roman mile unit, which was obtained by adding 400 rotations of a 4 feet wheel a series of gears slowly open and has to release one pebble for each Roman mile. Such a device, for obvious, does not qualify as a robot nor as automation, but the very idea of gathering information from the external world through a measuring device is the key to modern robotics. Okay, so as far as I am able to conclude, the actual definition of the robot in itself is very complex because it's basically considered by a list of factors which it needs to satisfy, otherwise it won't be set as robot. So calling this car a robot isn't good because maybe it's not autonomous. It does not have its own intelligence, and it's basically me who's providing the input via the tablet or my phone to move around the space or on the ground. Okay, let's just read. It is worth noticing that such a device eventually converts information coming from a continuous phenomenon, the rotation of the wheel, into a discrete one, the number of pebbles. Autometer is nowadays often computed from the optical encoders fixed to the motor wheels, but the measurement concept is similar to the Heron had imagined 2,000 years ago. Another of the Heron's achievement is the automated puppet theater. It represents an impressive example of the level of skills and technology knowledge that was put together to use for the implementation of a device spent only for the entertainment. It is also the first known historical example of the programmable machine. The movements of the puppets were controlled by the wires and the wheels, whose movement followed a pre-recorded sequence. They were actuated by the movement of the weight suspended into a wire, just like the cuckoo clocks, German cuckoo clocks that were appeared 2 millennia later, means 2000 after 2000 years. Oh my god. Oh my god, what is that? Holy shit. Damn. Any computer programs that is used today for every single imaginable task is a remote descendant of this machine that was built only to amuse and surprise people. It is all the more stunning to realize that for centuries, the effort put to work to achieve such a goal far exceeded those dedicated to the creation of practically useful robots. Situation that lasted up to the middle of the 20th century, and this energy has led to intellectual and technological achievements that sometimes did not find any other application for the extended period of time. About 10 centuries later, about 10 to, about 10 centuries later, Ismail El Jazari, an engineer and mathematician living in Anatolia, fulfilled numerous contracts for, wait, what's the time? Okay, contracts for different monarchs. He was hired to invent apparatus impressive, aiming at impressing crowd during public parades. By clever use of hydraulics, levers, and weight transfer, he designed several mechanisms whose part would move autonomously. And his most famous uh, treatise, the book Knowledge of the Ingenious Mechanical Devices, he details system ranging from a hydraulic alarm clock that generates a smooth fluid sound to wake the owner after a time nap, to a musical instrument based on the cams that bumped into levers to trigger percussions. The cams would be modified in order to generate different percussive sequence, which constituted 10 centuries after here another implementation of the programmable automation. In order to note, it is to be, see, I'm experiencing so much brain fog right now that uh, I can't even read it properly. Anyways, it is to be noted that other devices such as Antikythera machine, a astronomical calculated date set 2nd century BC and whose inventor is unknown, has sometimes been regarded as the automaton. However, according to historians and the scholars, it was operated by a clan and thus did not meet the uh, autonomy criteria. It remains nonetheless related to the first automata and in particular to the first mechanical clock that appeared almost 15 years later by the fact that it does represent somewhat like the mechanical clock, a scale model of planetary system executed with stunning precision and the skill for time. Oh my god, that was crazy. That was crazy. I guess I'm done for today. I think I'm within my time limit, and I think I have done my today's task. I'm probably gonna start with this tomorrow. I don't know how much time we took to read these 10 pages. Just 55 minutes. That's crazy. But anyways, that's it for today. That's all I'm gonna do. All right. See you tomorrow, or if I get time, I'm probably gonna record a video. Am I supposed to do Python today? Actually, no, because I have to solve some problems, and after and I actually have to read some reading material, and probably after that I'm gonna proceed to the next lecture of the Python. Wait, let me just open my open courseware. Oh, just give me a sec. Introduction to computational. No, it was this one. Uh, Bisection search. So I have to start with the lecture 6. No, wait. We did bisection search, did we? Oh, we have already done bisection search. I didn't post the video on YouTube because I have to do some editing in that video. And I think we have to wait. Let me just see my notes. Let me just check my notes. No, we didn't. We have to start with bisection search. We have to start with lecture 6. Okay, we have to start with lecture 6. But anyways, I think that is for today. See you later.